Welcome to Salcedo Paranormal, and tonight I will be covering paranormal news. As always, you can find all episodes of the show, along with links to social media and other ways to contact me at the podcast page. And that is salcedoparanormal.podbean.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.podbean.com. Always happy to hear from you all, whether you have comments or questions or topic suggestions, or stories of paranormal experiences, whether they're your own or from others that you trust. And as always, thank you all for listening, and whether you are here for the live streams or you listen to the podcast or YouTube feeds. Also, if you would like to support the show, that would be appreciated. It's never expected, but it's always appreciated. There's a few different ways to do that. Of course, you can share the show with others. And then there are books that I've written, paranormal fiction and nonfiction, that you can go check out on Amazon. Just look for James Salcedo, as I spelled it in the website name there. So that you can check out those. Also, I have a couple of links set up for donations. There are expenses for the show, and in terms of research and equipment. So, again, I know everything is tough right now, so never expected, but always appreciated if you can help. I think that takes care of all of that. And so I think I can get to the news here. So I've already put all these articles in the chat channel here. Oh, also, all those links I mentioned for the ways to support, they're all in the pinned post in the Discord channel. And they are always included in all of the episode descriptions. So, but anyway, so all the links are in this channel here. And so we'll get through as many of them today as we can. Ironic enough, in a way, is the first article that I have to talk about was from the last show. But we didn't get to it. What happens is I find articles for the news shows and for the true paranormal stories on the web shows, and I read as much as I can, talk about them as much as I can, and then whatever doesn't fit in one show gets moved to the next show. So that first article that you're seeing about resurrection, basically around the world, that was not intentionally timed for today, which, as I'm recording this, I'm not going to be doing this all the time anymore, but today, as I record this, is Easter. So that was not planned, but very interesting how that happened, in a way, I guess you could say. So going to the articles here. Let's see here. Let me get to the articles. So this first one, again, this is from History.com, and the title is 6 Ancient Resurrection Stories. So, of course, the first one they mention is from the Bible regarding the Christian beliefs about, really, they talk about how resurrection was not only limited to, in some cases, Jesus Christ in the Bible and religion there, but other figures within biblical texts as well. But so they talk about other places here. There's different examples of resurrection stories from ancient cultures around the world, including, it says, India, China, Mesoamerica, and Norse mythology. So this first one says Tammuz, the spring god of Mesopotamia. And so this talks about the way that agriculture is also associated with resurrection, in that the crops they grow and they're harvested, and then there's winter that puts everything to sleep or to death, symbolically, and then the next year everything rises again. So they talk about that, how that was deeply ingrained into the cultures basically around the world even. So mentions here that Ishtar was the great mother goddess of Mesopotamia and the source of nature's fertility and abundance. So, and Tammuz, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, according to legend, was a handsome young god who died each winter and passed away to the shadowy underworld. And then, of course, for half of the year, Ishtar traveled to the realm of the dead to rescue her lover, her basically, you could say, significant other. And during that time, that was when the winter was most active. That was during the winter season. So, says that all across the ancient Near East, says later cultures put their own twist on the spring resurrection story. And so it goes into examples of that. Just one other one here. I'm going to leave you all to read most of this article, but the next one it mentions here is Osiris, the Egyptian god of death. I guess they mean of agriculture and of agriculture, but just says of agriculture. But so it says that ancient Egyptian civilization was dependent on the cycles of nature, and they relied on the annual spring flooding of the Nile, which allowed for the growth of agriculture in that area. And so this was something that would happen every year, and then of course the flooding would stop, and there wouldn't be as much growth in the off part of the year, or the other part of the year. So they go into a lot more details here, and I'll just leave you all to check out the rest of the article on your own. So, because this is all stuff I know very little about, but I wanted to share that because I think that is a neat thing how so many different people around the world have different ideas and stories about how things work, but they all seem to be, at least in many of them anyway, seem to be similar. So I'm always interested in those kind of looking into the similarities of all the different people around the world. So let's check back on the everything here. Everything looks okay. All right, good. So going to the next article. Let me see here. I moved my taskbar around, so I'm still getting used to that. This next article is from mylondon.news, and this says, the beautiful palace in South London, way less famous than Buckingham Palace, where a ghost was once caught on camera. And so it mentions that to this day no one has been able to explain the weird photograph taken in 1966. So I think they show it here. But at the very least they talk about it. And they have pictures in the article here, so I definitely recommend checking it out. It mentions that London is full of places to stop and relax and visit. It's also, I mean, the UK is known for being possibly more haunted than other areas. I always take a little bit of issue with that, but it's possible. It says that it says the Queen's House is a royal residence located in Greenwich, and it was designed in the early 17th century. The last name of the designer is Jones, and was built for Queen Anne of Denmark, the wife of King James I. So it's said to be one of the most important buildings in the history of British architecture, and because it was one of the first buildings in England to be built in the classical style. And I'm not as familiar with architecture, so I don't know about all these things, but uh, mentions that the staircase is also famous for a ghost story that goes back to 1966, when a retired Canadian clergyman named Reverend Hardy visited the location with his wife and daughter, and while they were there, Hardy took a picture of the staircase, but didn't notice anything at the time. But when the photograph was developed, there was apparition of a figure going up the stairs. So, and it does have a picture of the staircase here. That is, it's a spiral staircase. That is one thing I do not like to ever try to walk on, is our spiral staircases. But let's see here. So it says the figure appeared to be a woman wearing clothing from the 1600s and appeared to be looking down at the viewer. So this was in the 60s. So the picture was famous in the media, and then of course in the paranormal world. Mentions that several theories have been put forward to explain the image, including a photographic flaw or double exposure. But many people think that the image shows that of a woman who passed on the staircase. And that's according to a story who, of course, fell to her death, so according to the story, while trying to escape basically a employer who was very sounds abusive there. So, but let's see here. I don't know if it shows the image or not. If it does, I'm not seeing anything, but that is not uncommon. So, but neat story there as far as the photograph itself. Hopefully the part of it, as far as the legend goes, is not true. But I always like to point out these locations where there is said to be photographic evidence of things, especially from the further back you go. I think it's a lot of cases it's maybe not quite as likely to be faked, but I could be wrong on that. So, let me check on the chat again. Everything looks good. All right. So, moving on to the next article. Let's see here. This one is from dailystar.co.uk. Excuse me. And it says, woman spots her dead husband eating at Indian restaurant in new promo video. Now, it's unclear reading the article as to when the video was taken versus when the husband passed. As far as I was able to read, doesn't really clarify, I don't think. But the idea of that is not uncommon. Apparitions appearing in pictures or videos, and in some cases not even appearing to be to be a ghost, to be translucent or transparent. So that wouldn't surprise me if that did happen in some cases, even if that's not the case here. So it's a neat idea to think about in places. And let's see here. So it is looking like maybe it wasn't so paranormal, but yeah, I don't know. Just the idea of that kind of an event happening is amazing. And so yeah, I don't know. Hard to say, but always neat to look at these stories and how they develop, and maybe the possibilities, even if the stories themselves are not quite so accurate or as interesting. Just extrapolating from there as to how or why that would happen in a paranormal sense. So that takes care of the articles left over from the last news show. And now I can get on to the articles that I found today. So this first one now, this one is amazing to me. This one is also from Ancient Origins. I'm sorry, not also. I haven't had any from there yet in the show. I've looked at a few today, so that's probably why I thought about that. This is from ancient-origins.net, and it says 10 supernatural powers from the deities of world mythology. And this is amazing because the thing that I want to point out here is, as you'll see with some of these abilities, they are things that people report in paranormal experiences. So what does that mean in terms of these deities and these figures in mythology, and does that mean that they are completely made up, or could there be something else going on? So the first power it mentions is shape-shifting, and of course we hear about that with things known as skinwalkers. Of course, there are different definitions depending on who you ask about those. But even with some ghosts, they appear to be able to, or apparitions, they appear to be able to change shape. So that is a fairly common thing. Another one that is mentioned here is flight. Of course, you get that a lot with more of your sightings of winged creatures or beings, but not always. There are some even just apparitions that appear to be flying. Of course, with that, you never know if it's because there was a building there before, and it's a residual image to where they're not really sentient. They're not really there walking or moving, but they're just moving across the space where there was a floor there once. Same with you hear about apparitions that have appear to be walking, but you can't see their feet or legs. They appear to be just the upper half of a person walking through a place. And in some cases it may be because the floor was at a different level, or the ground. So goes over all the different deities here and who had these abilities, but I just sort of wanted to and of course that is an amazing thing to check out too. So I definitely recommend this article. But just wanted to sort of link the topic of this article with the paranormal. Of course, invisibility, that's a thing that is reported where objects will move, or in some cases of maybe near invisibility, people will see movement, but then they won't see anything. We'll go over the next couple here, and then I'll stop and leave the rest for you all to check out. But the next one it says is elemental control. This is regarding weather control, but also I'm thinking elements as far as air or fire, any of those things. You hear stories about that, where there's a sudden movement of air or wind that comes from out of nowhere, it seems. So, different things like that. Of course, immortality, and so that's not something you hear as much with paranormal beings, but in some cases, some of the more extreme, more powerful ones, you'll hear about that they're immortal. I can't think of any off the top of my head right now, but I'm sure you all can fill in the blanks there. So, goes into the rest of these. I'll just name off the rest, and you all can maybe look into the rest on your own. Mentions healing, teleportation. That is a big one, I think. Let's see here. I missed one. Mind control. I would even say not necessarily control, but contact, I think, is definitely a possible thing. I think that's happened to me once or twice before. Number 9, of course, it mentions resurrection. And, of course, we covered that in the first article. And then the last one is superhuman strength. So that makes me think about how you have these different beings, whether they're ghosts or other kinds of spirits or entities, that have no obvious physical form, and yet they seem to be able to do things that would require strength. So where does that come from? So it's always a question I have when it comes to um, different experience stories. So anyway, that was that article. I thought it was a neat connection between the past and the present, and possibly the future. So I think I'll get through one more article here, and then we'll stop for today. This one is from mirror.co.uk. Title reads, Inside Story of the Road Ghost Phantom Hitchhiker, and where in the UK it haunts. Now, apparently in this article they're talking about a specific actual individual encounter, or a series of encounters, but this is something that happens, seems like almost everywhere, both in the UK and the US. But in this article, they're talking about a certain stretch of road. It's let me see here. Let's see. It's a coastal road. I don't think it really mentions the name of the road here, unless I missed it. Anyway, mentions a certain road where a driver, according to the story, known as Mr. M, was going down the road, and he spotted another man walking by himself along the road during the dark, and so it was at nighttime and it was storming out. So I pulled over and offered the man a lift to get him out of the heavy rain, and this man that was on the side of the road accepted, and he looked like a regular person, didn't look like an apparition of any kind. And so I lost my spot here. So, according to the story, the man's behavior was normal and calm. He had a troubled expression, which Mr. M thought must have been because of the bad weather, being out in the bad weather. And this is all according to a Dr. Gandhi, I guess, who was looking into these things. And the hitchhiker had a local accent and took a seat next to Mr. M in the car. So the man apparently asked all of a sudden if his girlfriend could join Mr. M, despite nobody else seeming to be around. But Mr. M agreed, and the hitchhiker hopped out of the car, it says, and walked around towards the back, where he apparently vanished. So it says it took about 20 seconds for Mr. M to figure out that the man had completely vanished, and there was no sign of him or any girlfriend. So it says that the road at that point had hills on either side. There was no way for anyone to get out of that area without going forward or backward, apparently. So this is just a neat article regarding the whole vanishing hitchhiker situation. So, and with that, we are out of time. Thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you on the next episode of Salcedo Paranormal. Take care.